This happened to my girlfriend and I on a road trip about 6 years ago. Every year, we drive up to my grandparents' house in northern Iowa to go and visit them as a sort of annual family get-together. We lived in Iowa City while my grandparents lived in Boone, which is a very small town north of the state which is located in a very rural part of Iowa. Grasslands, rolling hills, cattle, you get the picture. Anyway, we had packed everything up and started to drive the 2-hour-long trip to Boone. About halfway through the drive, we start to head into the country with open fields when I notice a car parked on the side of the road right next to a cornfield. It has its headlights still on, and all 4 doors were open, so I knew whoever's car this was couldn't have gone far. My girlfriend and I get out of our F-150 and search it for anyone, but expectedly, there was nothing except for some keys and a notebook. My girlfriend starts calling out for anyone, but there was no response. The road we were on went on for miles across the state, and there were no other cars or buildings in sight. I told my girlfriend to go search the field while I kept looking around the car for anything like a phone to find out who was here. After about 5 minutes of looking around, I didn't find anything, so I closed the car door when I hear the blood-curdling scream of my girlfriend. She then comes running out of the cornfield crying and tells me that we need to get back in the truck. As soon as we do, I kid you not, I see 4 men with masks appear out of the field. I hit the gas pedal so hard that you could swear my legs were spring-loaded. All the while, my girlfriend was breathing heavily while I tried to calm her down as to what she had seen. It took her a few minutes to relax, but she then finally had the courage to speak to me. She explained to me that she had gone into the field when she came to a small little clearing where she saw the dead body of a woman laying down. Based on her description, she told me that the woman looked dead for, at most, an hour or 2. We contacted the local sheriff about it, but I don't know what became of it. Till this day, I'm convinced that what we encountered that night was some sort of ambush to lure unsuspecting victims into their sick trap. God only knows what would have happened had those men caught us.
When I was 24 years old, I experienced something so strange, so scary, that I just had to write about it and share it with the world. It is absolutely true and was the scariest thing that has ever happened in my life. I was traveling at the time, going to visit my best friend who had moved a few states away from me to go to college. One day, I was driving in Ohio, if I remember correctly. I was on a long highway that stretched across the state when out of nowhere my car died. I shifted to the side of the road where I eventually came to a stop. I didn't run out of gas. I had just filled up at the last town. I tried starting my car, and I was very happy when it actually started. I was confused and was worried about why the hell it just died on me. As I started to pick up speed and get back on track, my car started making weird noises, and it sounded like something was grinding on something else. I looked up and saw a sign that showed that there was a gas station and food at the next exit. My car was moving, but with this grinding noise, I decided to get off the highway and take a look at it at the gas station. There were only 2 places off this exit that I could see, a gas station with 1 pump and an old-looking diner not too far off next to it. I pulled into the gas station and it looked closed. I checked my watch and quickly realized this was strange as hell. It was only 2:30 p.m. What kind of gas station closes before this time? I got out of my car and approached the glass door entrance to the station. I put my hands up and cupped the glass around my eyes to see inside. The place looked abandoned. It was obvious nobody was there, and I turned and looked around me. I felt a bit uneasy at this moment when I saw that no other people or cars were around me. What the hell? Where am I? I checked my phone and of course, I had no service. I looked up at the sky and it was white. The clouds were moving fiercely and it was cold as hell outside. I decided to get back in my car and drive it over to the diner. When I reached this place, I thought for sure it was closed as well. But to my surprise, before I could even reach the door after getting out of my car, an old woman opened the door to the place and greeted me with a smile. She looked nice, and I was so relieved to see somebody else and maybe get some hot food in my stomach. She said hello and asked if it was just me, did I want a booth, blah blah blah. I told her yes, it was only me, and a booth sounded fine. This diner looked very old-fashioned, and there was no other customers inside. The woman showed me to my seat, and I scooted into the booth. I looked up at her, and she was wearing an old apron with stains all over it. Her teeth were old, cracked, and yellow. She had a pleasant voice, though, and she seemed to be a very nice person. She handed me a menu and asked what I'd like to drink. I told her a Coke or Pepsi would be great, and she smiled and said she'd be right back. I sat there looking at this menu, and there was dirt on it. It looked like it had been sitting outside for years. I cleaned it off, and the food that was on it that was available was very basic. Burger, chicken sandwich, fries, salad. That was pretty much it. I decided to order the burger with some fries. A few minutes passed, and she hadn't returned with my drink yet. I was anxious to ask her if there was a mechanic around that could look at my car. A few more minutes passed, and I started thinking, what the hell is going on back there? I yelled out, "Hello?" in as nice a voice as possible. I got no response. At this point, I was annoyed, and I got up. I walked over to the door that led into the back cooking area and swung it open, about to ask where my drink was. To my surprise, the back of the diner was empty. There was no cooks, no fryers, no grills, nothing. The woman was nowhere in sight. It was obvious that this diner was not a running establishment, and I felt sick to my stomach. I started to walk into the back area when I heard the scariest, most evil old lady laugh I've ever heard. I stopped and backed up out the door into the front. I turned and walked out the door I came in from. I ran down the 3 steps and over to my car and got inside. Thank God my car started and I floored it out of there. As I was driving away, I looked into my rearview mirror and saw the woman standing in the middle of the road.
A little bit of context as to what made this story absolutely terrifying. I've been a trucker for about 5 years now, and at the time I lived in New Hampshire with my wife. I lived in a very rural part of the state, and my only source of income was from this job. What we'd basically do is transport certain goods over land and distribute them to companies. It was, to say the least, a relaxed kind of job. Most days, I would drive from town to town during the late night shifts, so oftentimes I'd have my coffee with me to keep me awake. This one night, though, I didn't have my coffee. It was around 1 a.m., and I was doing my usual nightly routine of delivering some materials for a warehouse company by doing shipments. If I remember correctly, I was driving down a narrow road with a lot of trees on both sides, which, I'm not gonna lie, made me feel a bit uneasy. The thing about this road, however, was the obvious fact that it didn't have the 2 yellow lines that separate the lanes. Needless to say, I kept driving down the road, when I thought I could see something in the middle of the road about 30 or so feet away. It only took me a few seconds to realize that it was a pickup truck. Its lights were still on, and laying beside it were 2 bodies, a man and a woman. However, something seemed off about the whole thing. The bodies were parallel to each other, as if it had been staged. I grabbed my .22 and got out of my truck to inspect the scene. Upon closer inspection, I could see an open suitcase with personal belongings scattered all over the pavement. As weird as the whole situation was, I had this unsettling feeling, like a sense of dread. Something told me that this wasn't some crime scene, and that I should get back in the truck immediately. I trusted my instincts and got back in, when I heard a loud scream from somewhere in the woods. My blood ran cold as I heard this, and that's when I see people emerging out of the woods in multiple directions. I floored it down the road, not looking back, with my heart pounding 100 times per second. When I looked in my rearview mirror, I saw that the 2 bodies that were lying on the ground were now up on their feet.
When I was younger, every year for Christmas I would drive upstate to my aunt's house along a stretch of highway. I cannot for the life of me remember the name of this road. All I know is it runs nearby Akron in New York at some point. However, most of the drive is through rural areas with little to no towns nearby. So it was the dead of night, and my groggy self had gotten off a long shift and had to drag my ass to my aunt's house since my extended family was expecting me the following morning. Near halfway through the drive, I realized I was low on gas, which irritated me. My brother told me that he had filled it up the day before, so he either forgot or was straight lying. I saw an archaic-looking sign for a gas station off the next road. It wasn't an official road sign, literally a pole with a slab of metal attached with "gas off next exit" or something along those lines painted on. That seemed a little sketchy, but people do the same thing with fruit stands on highways, so whatever. I pulled off the next exit on some dilapidated country-ass road through dense woods. The whole thing was creepy and surreal. I kept expecting Leatherface to come running out of the trees with a chainsaw. Anyways, eventually I came to the gas station and realized quickly it hadn't been open for years. It was all rusted, and the convenience store's roof was caving in. The gas pumps had all been taken out as well. I pulled over next to it and checked my gauge. I would probably only make it another half mile before running out, so I called AAA, and they said they would send a truck over. Now I played the waiting game. I left my engine on because when the headlights were off, everything was pitch black, and my paranoid self wasn't sitting next to an abandoned gas station in the middle of a forest in complete darkness. So most of the wait went uneventful until I sensed movement around the side of the old store, where my lights are pointed. I look up,
but didn't see anything more, so I looked back down at my phone. Then, over the sounds of the night, I hear someone yell, "Hey buddy, come here," in a demanding tone. I look up and I shit you not, there's a dude standing by the old store, looking towards me, illuminated by my headlights. He looked like a run-of-the-mill homeless guy. I was honestly spooked and figured he must have been squatting there. Still watching him, I rolled down my window and yelled something like, "Yeah, what's up?" Still mentally crapping myself. I had my foot ready to floor it out of there at the first sign of trouble. "You got any change?" "Nah, I don't, sorry man." I look up at him. He has this kind of vacant expression and is standing stiff. Then I see more movement. There are heads, about 20 or so heads, peeking around the trees beyond the man I'm talking to. I can't see them clearly at all, but they are definitely people, literally just heads, staring in my directions from around the trees. I see another guy beginning to walk from around the gas station, and then I turned around and sped off. I got as far away from that place as my tank could carry me, and updated AAA on my location. The driver came back over and filled me up, and I didn't say anything. But after he left, I wanted to call the cops, so I called the nearest town's sheriff department. They said they would send a trooper over, and I gave them the location. When I got to my aunt's house, they called me back and said whoever was there was gone, but they could tell a large number of people had been living there for a while. Blankets, canned food, the usual. The whole situation still freaks me out, but frankly, I can consider myself lucky. I'll always have such a creepy story to tell. I'm just glad nothing bad happened. Yeah, and to the creepy dudes at that gas station, let's not meet.